While it hasn't been 100% confirmed, I have a very strong suspicion that the shotgun I said I didn't really want to talk about anymore, the KV Broadside, is going to catch some sort of nerf in the near future, whether it's Season 4 Reloaded or after the fact. I think it's going to catch another nerf. And you might be wondering yourself, why? Well, that's because anytime I browse Twitter or on Reddit, and this shotgun comes up, or shotguns in general, this gun is always the point of discussion, and it's always being talked about, and as you can imagine, it's not very positive. Anytime there's some sort of semi-automatic shotgun in, I guess, the meta of things, especially close range, obviously, semi-automatic shotguns get a lot of hate, and there's a good reason why, but there's also this large stigma associated with shotguns. But anyway, what I want to do with today's video is share my thoughts on the KV Broadside. Do I think it's actually overpowered as a lot of people claim to be? Is it actually really well balanced? Is there any changes I would make? And so let's just go ahead and hop into the video, starting with, do I think that this shotgun is balanced? As I said before, this gun has been getting a lot of negative press around it, and more recently than not, it's sort of come up again in popularity. I don't really know why, but do I think that it's balanced? For the most part, I kinda do, yeah. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, you're the shotgun guy, of course you're gonna say that. Well, I don't really enjoy these shotguns. Anyone who's watched my stuff knows I love pump actions, I love lever actions, double barrel, stuff like that. In Warzone, there's so much fun and I love the playstyle, but these sort of spammy shotguns, I've never been a huge fan of, where you just kind of unload and that's it. I mean, yes, they're fun, but I don't enjoy them as much as a good solid pump action like the Brysons that we have currently. So before you start thinking I'm just a shotgun guy, that's of course what I would think. No, that's not at all the reason. I do think that this gun is pretty well balanced when it comes to how we've seen shotgun metas in the past in terms of semi-autos and stuff like that. This one does fairly well. Now, do I have changes that I would recommend? Absolutely, and we're gonna go over those because I do think, given how easy it is to use, there are some changes I think would make this gun a lot healthier in the ecosystem of the game, like the sandbox of the game. But for the most part, in terms of damage and ranges, I think they did a pretty good job. If you compare the KV Broadside with all of its range increasing attachments, like a suppressor and a big barrel, to something like the Lockman sub, which isn't even a top tier SMG, it's sort of middle tier now. If you compare them, the KV Broadside only really shines underneath that 5-meter mark, and outside of that, it kind of balances out pretty well. The KV Broadside has such a steep damage drop-off, and that is really one of the biggest things balancing it in my opinion. But the thing is, it's not just this really fast time to kill that makes the Broadside such a pain for a lot of people, it's the fact that it's so easy to use and that it feels pretty, for lack of a better word, brain dead in a lot of ways, because on a map like Vondel, you don't really have to try to get up close because there's so many really tight spaces. You can easily find people in the stairs and kill them incredibly easy because this thing, you don't have to aim very well. So even though it does kill faster, it is very easy to use. And that's why I want to offer some changes to this to maybe make it a little bit more difficult to use, but still retain some of its identity and make it to where it's still going to have this niche of killing very fast up close with a really steep damage drop off. So now I want to get into kind of what I would change if I wanted to balance this a different way. Like I said, I do think that it's pretty balanced overall. It's just that there are some things that make it a little annoying to play against, and I want to try and alleviate that because I think it would benefit a lot of people, including myself overall, but still retain the identity of this gun and keep it strong. So the first thing on my list that absolutely 100% needs to change is Dragon's Breath. And you may be thinking the damage or the range? No, I'm talking about the flames that shoot out of the gun blind you. You can't see shit when someone is shooting this thing at you, and it is ridiculously annoying. Now, if you're talking about the damage and the range, this thing really isn't even that good. There's a spot in one of my gameplays where someone's chasing me down with this thing, and they're not really doing much damage at all with the Dragon's Breath version, and I just turn around and mow them down. But that's not really the issue. It's the fact that you can't see when they're shooting at you, and that, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. Couple that with the fact that a lot of guns now in this game have a bunch of visual recoil, a bunch of muzzle flash and stuff. It's just a pain in the butt, in all honesty, to deal with. So I think that they just need to tone down the Dragon's Breath effect and make it to where it's just not as obnoxious. Now, I know that's kind of sad because someone worked really hard to make that damn cool effect of the Dragon's Breath rounds, and I love it. I think it's so badass. Definitely has John Wick vibes. If you haven't seen the 4th John Wick, go watch it now. But honestly, it just needs to be toned down. I don't know if they need to make a sweeping change across all Dragon's Breath shotguns or just the KV Broadside. Maybe they could make it to where Tac Mask or whatever that perk is really makes it to where it just basically negates how freaking bright it is. I don't know, something like that. But I really think this effect needs to be toned down because it's obnoxious to play against. Only in that sense. The damage, not really an issue. The range, not really an issue. Just the damn visual noise. Now, that's definitely the biggest thing I would change overall, but there is one thing that I would say might be a good suggestion to try out. And if you've seen my videos before, you might know where I'm going with this, but in general, this thing is way easy to use, right? A lot of people don't like the fact that you can just spray and pray, even though that's kind of what the shotgun's for. They don't like that, and I totally understand that, but there might be a way to actually keep it as strong as it is now while still having to sort of increase the skill gap of its usage in some way. And to me, one good way that might be to solve this issue is to introduce that hipfire damage mechanic that the 725 or Lockwood 300 has, where essentially if you're hip firing this gun, your damage is capped at 3 pellets. The moment you aim down sights, it raises to 4. The normal is 4, so if you want to get the base damage you have now with the gun, you would have to aim down sights. Now, ideally, this wouldn't apply to its max damage range, because I feel like if you're sort of in someone's face, like sub 5 meters, you should just be able to spray and pray and get a 3-shot kill. But I don't think that's how it's going to work, because this is sort of an all or nothing change where you hit fire, you deal 3 pellets worth of damage, or you aim down sights and do 4. There's no middle ground. But ideally, it would just be in the ranges after the max damage range. But this mechanic is something we've only seen on the double barrels, and I would love to see it implemented on a different shotgun. And why not test it on this one? This is the perfect one. It would get a lot of people sort of trying it out and seeing what this damage mechanic is capable of. It would be a test run to see, is it worth running on other shotguns? Is it sort of something we can expand upon? I think it would be a great idea to implement this, and I know a lot of people might hate me for that, especially the people who love this shotgun, but I would love to see this change. Make it to where aim down sights does more damage and hip fire does less damage. It's worth a try, and I think that would alleviate a lot of people's issues with how quote-unquote brain dead they think it is to use it, even though you gotta be close. But really, those are the only 2 things I would change, or at least consider changing. I know Dragon's Breath for sure has to be toned down. The second thing that I mentioned, I would like to see it implemented. I'm not gonna lie, I think it would be very interesting, and it would still make the gun very strong. You just gotta aim down sights. So that is my opinion on it. Overall, I'm relatively happy with how the gun is balanced now. I just think that the visual noise of Dragon's Breath needs to be toned down, and there could be a few tweaks here and there to maybe the damage drop-offs, or like I said, the hip fire versus aim down sights damage mechanic. There's a few things that we could try to make it a little bit better and not quite as frustrating to play against. But that being said, that's just going to do it for this video. So now I want to know down below in the comments, what do you think of the KV Broadside? Is it super annoying to play against? Are people really exaggerating about it and it's not that bad? And with all that being said, guys, I will see you in the next video.